Now let's welcome in political analyst Mark Halperin and Republican strategist Kate Monroe. Welcome to the 11th Hour Report to you both. Mark, what's your take on one of the biggest stories from last night's primaries, the South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace winning her Republican primary despite her rival being backed by former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy?
Well, good night for Donald Trump's candidates, not so good for Kevin McCarthy's candidates. I think in the end, Mace is kind of a distinctive figure, obviously. But she shows, amongst other things, that Donald Trump is a forgiving guy. People cast him always as vindictive, and yet he supported Nancy Mace, who's not always been a big supporter of his. He's considering for vice president a bunch of folks who have said pretty bad things about him in the past. So I think the lesson there is if you can get on the right side of Donald Trump, even belatedly, he'll be with you, and his endorsement is still what matters most in Republican primaries.
Okay. Kate, how much did Trump's endorsement help Mace? And does it prove that he's willing to let bygones be bygones in order to get the people he sees as most helpful to push his platform?
I think it does show something about his change in spirit rolling into this next election season. I've always said whatever got you there isn't going to get you there. So I've seen some things that I'm really proud of him for changing. I think it absolutely had to do with her win. And I'm glad that he's doing this, stepping out and endorsing more people. I ran for Congress. I would have loved to have had his endorsement. I even went down and secured the border thinking, hey, I'm down here doing the Lord's work for you, Trump. But I actually think that any endorsement you can get from him is going to be a win rolling into this election.
Well, the House held a vote today to hold U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress. Mark, I know we're switching gears here, but where does this go?
Well, look, we don't know exactly how all of this is going to be resolved, but this shows that the Speaker Johnson, has been able to, with a slim majority, win some tough votes. And I think it gives him some momentum. He was underrated by me and many others, deemed an accidental speaker. So I don't think anything's going to happen to Merrick Garland, but I do think it's another good sign for the current speaker and his capacity to herd those cats in the conference.
Okay. Kate, this one's for you, and I think you're going to enjoy it. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre did not rule out President Joe Biden commuting his son Hunter's sentence following his conviction on federal felony charges. I want you to listen to this.
I haven't spoken to the president about this since the verdict came out. And as we all know, the sentencing hasn't even been scheduled yet. But you saw the president do an interview just last week when he was in Normandy, and he was asked, a question, several questions, a couple questions about this, and he was very clear, very upfront, very obviously very definitive. And I just don't have anything. You have his own words. I just don't have anything beyond that.
Very clear and very definitive. Kate, your thoughts?
I mean, if he takes a step and actually does want to commute this sentence, I mean, the sentence on a crime that's so much less than what they have really done as a family. They have taken money from foreign powers, and here he gets convicted for hooker's blow and weapons. I mean, this family is just an absolute clown show and embarrasses us on the world stage. And this whole being clear and concise, never seen it from the man one time, so I don't expect it to come in the future either.
Mark, back to you. Some on the left are suggesting the Hunter trial is proof the DOJ is not being weaponized, while conveniently ignoring the charges were never going to be brought against Hunter until IRS whistleblowers exposed the crimes. It's also important to remember that 51 former intelligence agents insisted Hunter's laptop was Russian disinformation when we all know it wasn't. And let's not forget that sweetheart deal initially offered to Hunter, where he could plead guilty to 2 tax misdemeanors for not paying taxes on $1.4 million, and the gun charges would just go away. And not for nothing, he apparently earned that $1.4 million while smoking crack every 20 minutes, but that's neither here nor there, Mark. If it wasn't for the judge rejecting that ridiculous deal, he looks like he would have gotten off scot-free. So I want to know what your thoughts are on where the DOJ stands in all of this, considering all of these factors I've just shared with you.
Look, it's a bit of a puzzle, right? In the beginning, not just in the sweetheart plea deal that the judge didn't stand for, but in the conduct of the case as exposed by the whistleblowers, it didn't seem like Special Counsel Weiss was particularly aggressive, to say the least. After the plea deal blew up, though, he did 180. The prosecution in this case in Delaware, the tax case in L.A., is extremely aggressive. almost gratuitous in its attempts to embarrass Hunter Biden. This case, just like the Trump case, would not have been brought if not for politics. But I cannot tell you what's going on with the special counsel and his doing a 180, going from seeming to do everything he could to help Hunter Biden to going very aggressively at him, and that was the last move in the musical chairs, and Hunter Biden may well now be double convicted.
Okay. Kate, I have one more question for you before you go back to shooting targets there. I've heard from more than one knowledgeable person that the first presidential debate scheduled 2 weeks from now is actually a test to see if Biden can handle himself against Trump, because if he can't, the theory is it'll be the Democratic Party signal to replace him before the convention and election. Does that sound plausible to you?
I have said since the beginning, since sometime last year, that I think that they will definitely replace him. They've been staging people to replace him this entire time. I mean, only yesterday or the day before, you saw him stand in a completely static position where he was unable to even move or understand where he was. So to think he's going to go debate someone like President Trump, who that's him in his element, I don't know that he'll even make it to that debate, but I feel like he will embarrass himself. And the result of that inevitably will be them shoving in someone like Michelle Obama, shoving in someone like Gavin Newsom. Even though he doesn't poll well, he's going to perform better than President Biden.
Mark, I'm really curious for your thoughts on the same question. Is this a test? Could the Democratic Party be considering replacing Joe Biden before the November election?
I mean, there are people who'd like to do it. And with respect to the question and the previous answer, you can't tell an incumbent president he can't be the nominee if he's won all the delegates and he wants to be the nominee. So barring a health issue or some change of heart by Joe Biden, there's no replacing an incumbent president as the nominee. He will be the nominee unless he decides he won't be.
Unless he decides. So if they convince him that he shouldn't be, then he can decide to not be.
I don't know who the they are. I think if you want to create a they, it's Congressman Clyburn, it's Nancy Pelosi, it's Barack Obama. But I don't think they've got an idea of how you replace Joe Biden and not replace him with Kamala Harris. And I don't know anybody around Joe Biden who thinks Kamala Harris has a better chance to beat Donald Trump than even this version of Joe Biden does. So it's not so simple. Even if there's a group of people who can try to influence him, how do you not have Kamala Harris be the nominee?
It's a very interesting question, Mark Halperin. Thanks so much for joining us. You too, Kate Monroe. We'll see you again here soon.